So I was lucky enough to kind of grow up with AI and be around people like Minsky and Shannon who started the field. And um, it was interesting that the stuff that we thought was going to be very hard turned out to be very easy, and vice versa. So there was always an assumption that there would be something that was called the pattern recognizer, which did things like recognize a face or guess what the next obvious word in a sentence was, or some stuff that was we did without any apparent effort at all. And then there was going to be other systems like the planner and reasoner and that did things that were very hard for us, like playing chess. And that was assumed to be the hard part because it was hard for us. And in fact, it was assumed maybe in the beginning if that understanding speech would be relatively easy, but producing it would be much harder. Just because we don't really have any apparent work to do understanding speech. In fact, those things did turn out to be fairly simple in some sense, but they weren't easy because they required huge amounts of computation. So the brain is a big parallel computer, and doing pattern recognition requires a big parallel computer. So the interesting thing is that everybody underestimated well, actually they didn't underestimate it, but they just wanted to build the biggest computer they could. That was my PhD was saying, oh, this isn't nearly fast enough. We need thousands of times faster. Turns out we need millions of times faster. But the current generation of AI, which is doing such impressive things, is very close to using the same algorithms that were imagined in the very beginning of simulated neurons. And so it kind of works as everybody guessed. It just needed a lot more computing behind it. So in a sense, it was easy, but it was hard because it required a lot of computing, a lot of data, and so on. But that was only one component of AI. And I think we've gotten a little bit confused right now. We see this tremendous amount of progress in that one component, and we say, oh, now we're worried about the existential risks of AI and so on. I think those are real questions, but I've seen people ask those questions every time there's a big advance. So when I started AI, computers couldn't beat people at chess. And in fact, there were philosophers who wrote books about how computers would never beat humans at chess because they wouldn't have the intuition. And it was actually a bit upsetting for people when computers did beat humans at chess. That was a big deal. And then we kind of got over it very quickly. But there was a big sort of talk about humans being replaced by machines and very similar set of worries that were done by that. It was actually the computer was just really good at doing something that we thought was hard. And I think that's happening again. The computers are just really good at doing something they didn't used to be. We've had a jump in one aspect of them. But they will be, that's only one part of what's needed to make truly intelligent machines. And so what we have now is machines that can kind of fake intelligence. They can kind of pretend to be intelligence by imitating them. So I think of them a little bit. I have a granddaughter who's very good at watching a bunch of workmen on jobs, the electricians wiring, and then she'll start talking to them as if she shouldn't you put that conduit, into that box? And they're like looking at her. She doesn't really know what she's talking about, but she's picking up the words and starts saying plausibly sounding things and kind of thinking it. And so the current generation of is kind of doing that. It's kind of faking intelligence by imitating intelligence without actually being. But what's different about this one than the other times people have gotten all excited about it is it's attracted a tremendous amount of money, which has attracted very smart people. So the number of people that are working on artificial intelligence has gone up by an order of magnitude, and the resources that are going into it have gone up by more than that. So while I don't think the technology has taken as big a jump as people imagine, I think it will take a jump because now so many more smart people are working on it. And so some of these other aspects of artificial intelligence are going to get worked on. And so what we'll eventually end up with is a system that has this sort of intuitive part, which is makes the obvious guesses on things. And then it will be coupled by critical thinking part, which will look at those guesses and sort of vet them and correct them and throw them away if they don't make sense. And I think one of the interesting needs here for that system to work is there has to be a source of truth. And so I think that's one of the reasons I'm interested in building this knowledge graph of provenance information, so that that critical thinking part can look at all these plausible things that are generated by large language models or neural networks or things like that, apply critical thinking, taking what they produce and question it against what's known. And that, I think, could be truly intelligent. And I think it will happen. And the nice thing, too, is it works the other way, too. They will also be smart enough to put things back into that knowledge graph. And so we'll have this thing, which is kind of the most valuable thing that humans have, which is human knowledge. We'll have a representation of that. So I think we're on the verge of that. I'm pretty excited about that.